technical arrangements. Hopefully we can all hear each other if we try and project our voices. The microphones are all on the display behind me. I'm going to be a disembodied voice for the morning. I'm Karen McCarthy, I'm the chair of the committee. So not only should the microphones pick up your contributions, they will pick up any muttered asides, not looking in any particular direction. So if you can be aware of that, and hopefully the web stream will be of better quality than we had earlier in the week. This planning committee is a quasi-judicial meeting, and no decisions have been made in advance of the meeting. I should say that members don't enjoy parliamentary privilege during this meeting and therefore need to express caution in how they deliver their comments. And we are not here representing our wards this morning, but representing the whole council in our planning responsibilities. I'll turn to the agenda now, and the first item is the notice of recording and webcast. This meeting is being webcast for live or subsequent broadcast via the council's internet site, www.civico.net/Birmingham, and members of the press and all public may record and take photographs, except where there are confidential or exempt items, of which I don't expect there to be any today. If you're a regular viewer, and congratulations if you are, please look carefully at the agenda for our next meeting, as we may by then switch to a different system. Declarations of interest is item 2. Members are reminded that they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item, and any declarations will be recorded in minutes of the meeting. That's the standard declaration of interest paragraph for all council meetings. In addition, because of the nature of our deliberations in planning committee, you will hear members indicate that they have previously expressed a view on applications, and they will then leave the room for that item. That's if they've expressed a view outside previous discussions of the same item at previous planning committee meetings, if that's clear. Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just in respect of item 10, the land bounded by Sherlock Street, Bishop Street and First Street, I have been in discussions with the applicants and their agent, and I've also made representations, so I shan't take part in the agenda item.
Thank you. And I have other members who will be leaving for other items which I've noted as we go. I have apologies this morning from Councillors Donaldson, Idris and Beecham. And say welcome to Councillor Stanford, who's joining us for the first time. And I'm sure we would want to note our thanks to Councillor Morrell for his contributions to the committee. They've now done a swap. And the chair's announcements, all I've got, having previously mentioned the different arrangements for the meeting, is that our next meetings will be the 8th and 22nd of July and the 5th of August. And again, please watch the agenda for where these meetings will be, because if we don't need to be socially distanced, we will have conversations about whether other rooms are suitable. We have 2 sets of minutes before us today. Can we agree the minutes of the 27th of May? Thank you. And the minutes of the 10th of June. Thank you, which brings us up to date. Thank you very much to our Democratic Services team for that. We go on then to our planning applications for the morning. We deal with these on a geographical basis. And as I've said earlier, there will be some disembodied voices in this part of the meeting because we are operating on one camera position today rather than try and flick between different cameras. And if you can all speak up, that would be helpful. We do have public speakers on a couple of items, 3 items in fact, although the same people are speaking on more than one. How we take that is that speakers in objection have 3 minutes in total, and speakers in support have 3 minutes in total, and it's up to those people, if there's more than one in each category, to sort out the time arrangements themselves. So we start today with the northwest area. I'm looking for Karen. She's on the front row. So Karen Townend is our officer for the northwest area today. We do have speakers on this item, which is land to the south and west of Booths Lane, Forger Close, Beacon Avenue, Deer Park Drive, and Hall End Road in Great Barr. And the order in which we will take speakers is that Karen will provide us with any updates. Then we will go to our public speakers, and Sean Hammerby, our Assistant Director, will do the timing on that. We don't have an off switch, so we are trusting you to keep to your 3 minutes. If you don't, Sean and I will talk very loudly over you. We normally are able just to switch you off in our normal setup. So we have Councillors Sandhu and Julie Ledesma Padilla, if I've got that right, speaking in objection, and we have Catherine O'Toole from the Pegasus Group speaking in support. So it goes officer update, public speakers, officer replies to points raised, and then members. So if that's clear, I'll hand over to Karen.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, Booth Lane, the application included 59 dwellings. There was a couple of updates on this in regards to matters that were outstanding on the officer report. To begin with, access and highway issues. So obviously we were awaiting final comments from the Transportation Officer. We've now received the road safety audit that was requested and a plan showing visibility displays and revised layout plan taking into account the recommendation of road safety. Very, very minor changes to the application site and the layout to take those into account. Transportation Development can therefore confirm if they no longer have any queries or objections subject to conditions, and I'll update you on conditions momentarily. Existing estate roads are yet to be adopted, but are built to adoptable standard, and it's understood they're going through the adoption process. On ecology issues, the applicant has offered a financial contribution of £88,050 to compensate for the loss of the slope. Council ecologist has confirmed the proposals and that financial contribution are policy compliant, and the contribution, which is based on DEFRA guidance, is acceptable. The contribution, when considered in association with the open space financial contribution, part of which would be directed towards biodiversity enhancements and the on-site faunal enhancements such as bird and bat boxes and the amphibian refugia. The scheme will therefore deliver biodiversity net gain, although there isn't currently policy requirement for such a net gain. Where and how the council spends the money is yet to be agreed, form part of the negotiations on Section 106, but it's recommended that it's spent within either the woodland adjacent to the site, the retained slink area, or the present nature reserve, and that will be dealt with as part of 106 after the application. In regards to affordable housing, there's a small error in the officer report at section 1.10. The officer report states there's 14 affordable rent and 45 affordable ownership. It should read 45 rent and 14 ownership, shared ownership. It's just flipping those around. The recommendation therefore needs to be updated to take into account the ecology contribution. So we need to add further header terms into section 106 agreement to require a sum of £88,050 to be paid to the council for the provision of off-site biodiversity enhancements. We also therefore need to add a potential reason for refusal if section 106 isn't entered into, to advise that with the absence of a legal agreement, the application will also fail against CP8 due to the biodiversity enhancements. There's then 5 additional conditions recommended by Ecology and Transportation in terms of the provision of on-site biodiversity enhancements, i.e. the bird and bat boxes in the future, the vehicle visibility displays, pedestrian visibility displays, and the requirement to do the highway works in accordance with adoptable standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, I'll hand over to you to manage the speaking process.
Thank you. Yes, we've got Mr. Padilla and Councillor Standing. I understand you've agreed 2 minutes for yourself. Yeah. So when I say go, I'll put the clock on, and I will remind you when there's 15 seconds to go, just so you're aware. But whenever you're ready, just come in.
So, dear planning committee, my name is Julie and I'm a resident of Beacon Avenue, the proposed entrance and exit for the dwellings Care Homes on built. I'm here to represent my deeply concerned neighbours. There seems to be a lack of understanding of how unsuitable Beacon Avenue is for the proposed development, and it's entitled concerns are not included in the documents you have included. The road is there illegal for two-way traffic and isn't fit for purpose with residents of Beacon Avenue and their businesses as it is. On the 9th of August 2020, in the midst of the pandemic and a full national lockdown, one of the residents of Beacon Avenue blocked from driving his car to his home due to the number of cars on the road. Unfortunately, this neighbour had to leave his car at the top of the road at 3 a.m. in the morning and walk to his house. On the 22nd of April 2021, an EON engineer who was in the truck removing a backwards from the end of Beacon Avenue was blocked in by a number of parked cars for almost half an hour. On a weekly basis, our bin men are unable to drive their truck down to the end of the road because of the amount of cars parked on both sides. We strongly believe this is an accident waiting to happen with severe threat to loss of life. If Beacon Avenue is the entrance and exit to the estate and a fire truck cannot pass, the consequences could be devastating. Surely this is something the council simply cannot ignore. The rules are clear and state that the council authorises planning permission on the notion that the location of new housing should be adequately served by existing and new infrastructure. But as you've heard, this is simply not the case. If roads are blocked and difficult to navigate, it is arguable that the emergency services will not be guaranteed safe passage on Beacon Avenue in an emergency, and as the only entrance to the proposed site and exit could result in potential loss of life or damage to property depending on an emergency. It seems ludicrous to think that over 112 people and more will be
15 seconds.
where 28 people right now struggle on a daily basis. We therefore urge this committee to object to the development and not to continue.
Thank you. Councillor Sandy, you've got a minute. And again, I'll remind you there's 15 seconds.
Appreciate. I'm Councillor Darragh Sindhu and I'm here representing objecting to this application on behalf of the local residents. This land is listed as a site of local importance for natural conservation. Policy TP9 of the Birmingham Development Plan explicitly states that land identified structure should be promoted and supported, protecting its geology and biodiversity. Going on to say that land will be protected from development that will harm their function. This development will destroy their function. The previous plan application, which was to mainly boost the existing Buchanan estate, was justified on the basis that this new land would be maintained. The report conducted by the proposers regarding traffic was conducted during lockdown, which of course showed reduced traffic levels and therefore should be dismissed. The green space also provides a noise barrier from the M6 motorway. Residents have already reported unacceptable levels of noise, and this unacceptable level of noise was also reported in the proposers' survey on noise.
15 seconds.
As COVID has shown, the importance of public open spaces, public outcropping, this plan goes against the Birmingham Development Plan. This application calls noise and traffic chaos as a key corridor for habitat and flora and fauna linking with the nature reserve. Therefore, I urge the committee to reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, I'll bring you back in, and then as transportation issues have been raised, I'll bring Paul Cowan in to deal with those points, and then I'll bring you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm obviously more thrown by being in a different room than I thought. Apologies.
Is that all? Yeah. You've got 3 minutes, and again, I'll remind you when it's 15 seconds in. Thank you, whenever you're ready.
committee. This application is for 59 dwellings, all of which will be affordable housing, including both affordable rent and shared ownership. The scheme will be managed by Midland Heart Registered Provider. Midland Heart has extensive experience and expertise in managing affordable schemes across the West Midlands. Over the last 10 years, Birmingham has experienced a net loss of affordable housing across the city, who losses to right to buy outpacing affordable housing delivery. The committee will also be aware that many brownfield schemes include viability cases, which result in low policy levels of affordable housing being delivered. Schemes which deliver 100% affordable housing significantly above the policy requirements, such as this proposal, are an important part of addressing the affordable housing challenges in the city. Midland Heart confirmed that this proposal is a voluntary right to buy replacement scheme to replace affordable housing in Birmingham that has been sold under the right to buy. The provision of 59 affordable dwellings on the site is significant public benefit. It is acknowledged that the site has a SLING designation and is considered by officers to be open space. First development to demonstrate the exceptional circumstances to justify the loss of open space is therefore entirely policy compliant. The proposal will deliver significant contributions towards public open space and the ecological enhancements in the area, delivered by biodiversity net gain. The woodland adjacent to the site is not part of the proposed development and will be retained, including its non-public function. The proposed site includes significant on-site landscape and contains the ecological corridor connecting the existing woodland to the present military line. The proposal has been subject to extensive discussion with officers regarding layout, separation distances, and immediacy considerations. As a result, amendments have been made to the layout to ensure the amenity of existing and future residents is safeguarded. This has included careful consideration of the levels and relationship with the adjacent residential development, which is higher and significantly reduces any overlooking. The layout follows good design principles and responds correctly to the adjacent development. Highways matters have also been subject to discussions with officers and a road safety audit has been carried out. It's been demonstrated that the proposed development is acceptable in highways. There's been no objection from West Midlands Fire Service or any other statutory consultees. Overall, the proposed development complies with all relevant policy considerations. It will deliver significant contributions to the current space and ecological enhancements in the area, totaling £560,800 towards the provision, improvement, and or biodiversity enhancement and children's play within Queensland Water Temporary Park. In addition, a total of £88,050 will go towards securing biodiversity enhancements in the local area. This application will deliver 100% affordable housing, which is significant public benefit of the proposal. On this basis, this is going to be submitted.
Thank you very much. I didn't even get to remind you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now it's time to hear from Karen, followed by Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to rely on a lot of the transportation amendments, obviously as noted in the update. Transportation development, no objection to the scheme, recommended conditions, and there's sufficient parking within the application. Is the existing estate that this is being served off, the dwellings on the road that it's coming through, Beacon Avenue, all have 2 parking spaces per dwelling. There isn't visitor parking, so there is some on-street parking, but it shouldn't be substantially severe to actually warrant refusal in the highway agreements. In regards to ecology matters, there is allowance within policy TP8 that developments that directly or indirectly affect sinks can actually be built on, providing the benefits of the proposal outweigh the need to safeguard the designated site, or damage is minimised and measures can be put into place to mitigate remaining impacts, or where damage cannot be avoided or fully mitigated, appropriate compensation is secured. With this development, we've got enhancements to the remaining open spaces being provided, the wildflower meadows planted and the suds pond. The adjacent slink and woodland all the trees are being retained, there's no impact in that. And we've also got financial contribution offered, which will be used to pay for additional biodiversity enhancements in the local area. The noise impact matter, obviously the regulatory services have assessed the application and not raised any concerns about noise. The site will be closer to the M6 than the existing houses, but it's being laid out so that the residents are not adversely affected. As I say, the trees and is being retained, and the landscape route around the site will maintain the link to the nature reserve to the north.
Thank you. Paul, do you wish to add to that?
Can you hear me
Yep, we can hear you.
So the application is supported by a transport statement. That's the normal aspect that is submitted to my officers. And that gives a breakdown of the implications and traffic from the development proposal. The first point of call there would be for a trip rate selection to be chosen by the developer that they feel is reasonable for that type of development. And not surprisingly, the trip rate selection is that very much mirrored the Taylor Willoughby trip rate selection on the consented development from which this site gains an access. So there's no dispute in terms of the robustness, in terms of the impact of the development that's before you, the additional development, and therefore the additional traffic. We would suggest to members is not a material issue to resist the application. Bearing in mind the comments that have been made in the public consultation aspect, we have requested, and it's been noted in public speaking, an independent road safety audit stage 1. Now that normally follows after planning permission is granted, but because of the content of the comments from the residents in the locality, we requested that a couple of weeks ago from the applicants, and they've obliged by submitting that information. Aspects that have been picked up within the independent road safety audit, the auditor visited the site and has made recommendations which has formed the basis of the condition of the additional conditions that you have before you. So on the basis of that and the commentary from Westminster Fire Service, we would suggest that subject to those conditions, there are no reasonable aspects to resist this application.
Thank you. I'll take contributions from members now. Councillor Straker-Wells.
Thank you, Chair.
Martin, could you speak up, please, as you're trying to reach a microphone that's behind me?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. It's whether the microphone's picking you up.
We've heard concerns raised on all sides and across the political spectrum over the loss of this former golf course. And this is understandable at a momentous time in our relationship with the natural world and our need to support biodiversity. We've heard also what the developer is prepared to offer. But the question in my mind is whether the gains outweigh the loss, and whether the offer from the developer really does compensate for this loss of green space that is such a concern. In other words, put it very bluntly, Chair, is this the best that we can get to compensate for the loss?
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
My comments are again regarding the loss of open spaces, and I believe that the ecology policy, environmental belief, counters that in some measure with the additional finances. But my concern is that we need to ensure that that money is spent on the benefit of local residents of that site and not just for the whole of the Westland ward, which is what the report states. And I think that would go some way to alleviating some of the concerns of local residents in terms of improving disability access, road access, etc.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Like other councillors, I do share the concerns in terms of the loss of open space and the ecology impacts. I think we need to bear in mind this isn't just open space. This is area which has been designated for conservation, and therefore we should attach more significance to that. Because when that was done as part of the previous application, the idea would be that this was to be conserved for the future and for ecological benefits. I appreciate there is enhancements in terms of biodiversity, but what's not to say there's a future application which basically threatens to build housing all over that again, because that is exactly what we're being asked to consider here today. So on that basis, that this is area designated for conservation, there is clearly ecological harm, and I don't think the benefits offered outweigh that harm, and therefore I believe we should resist this application.
Thank you. Councillor Rosing.
Thank you very much, Ian. I think as everybody knows this thing very well, because we desperately need more officers. As you see our waiting list, we will be surprised how many of them. And I think that's very good combination. This place has got very good history of planning and everything. And I think I appreciate the officers work very hard this month and And I just, because that's section 106, with the amount there, that can be used for benefit of that area. So I agree with this one, but we just very almost case. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else indicating. Oh, sorry.
I think there's some commendable elements of this application, including the degree of affordable housing that's included. But I would echo some of the concerns related to the S16 money potentially being used to maintain and develop green spaces outside of the ward in question. And on that basis, that's my final concern.
Thank you. Karen, can you respond to those points, please?
Yes, I can. Obviously, our landscape team within the council have suggested that the open space contribution, just find that currently within the 106 terms, so the £560,800 would be spent. Their preference would be on Tunbridge Park, which I believe is quite close to the site. Obviously, what we didn't want to do is specify that that's exactly where it's spent, because if between receiving the money and being able to spend the money, it's no longer required in that park, or the local community wants it spent elsewhere, then we'd rather not have it specified particularly to one specific site. Same with the open space, with the ecology contribution, you don't really want to specify one particular park or one particular piece of land, hence why we're saying either the adjacent to Lake Northwest Nature Park, on the basis of having some flexibility to enable the council to decide where it's best to use that money when the money is available and when there's a project available to be spent on. And all that's being worked out. There's other matters that need to be taken into account. We can't just go and spend the money straight away. Obviously, we wouldn't want it spent outside the ward. It needs to be for that local community that's being impacted and affected, and also as far as biodiversity, it needs to be for the ecology and wildlife that is being affected by this housing development. So we're saying we need a little bit of flexibility within 106, but not too much that it then could be spent anywhere. And obviously the finer details of that would be worked up in discussion with our legal team, ecologists, the landscape team within landscape practice group, people that manage and run some of these open spaces. And obviously we can have discussions with the local council at that point as well, in terms of where they think it's appropriate to use the money. I'm not sure if there's particularly anything else. Obviously, most of it is in relation to the concern of the loss of the open space, and I think the report and what I've just mentioned in relation to TP8, both TP8 and TP9 allow for loss of open space and loss of ecology spaces, providing there is mitigation. In this case, the mitigation is financial, not necessarily completely on site or an off-site piece of land, but the council, the people within the teams that would use that money are confident that they've got projects that they can spend that money on, and it won't just get lost and forgotten about, and we can then mitigate the impact of this development. And there is obviously the benefits of providing affordable housing in a scheme that, as officers would think, fits in well with the adjacent estate. That we might have to support the application, recommend it to.
Thank you. Councillor Scott, you wanted to come back in?
Just to come back on the point regarding eligibility for the spend on any monies that are offered to you. I'd like to seek a commitment from the planning officers that should this be approved today, that you treat local residents as party to any decisions that you make on how that money is spent, and make efforts to seek consultation with those people.
Thank you. Sean, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I think all of the points that have been made are perfectly valid. I think the approach we've taken is it's concern about loss of the habitat, concern about loss of the open space. It's very, very clearly that the balancing exercise would come through. And we completely understand the issue about concern about locality spend. The point about the 106 contributions is they have to be directly related to the impact of the development itself. So the spend should be related to that impact. So we would be looking for it to be spent within the locality to benefit that local community. And it would be the service areas, leisure, whoever deals with the open space contributions and the the ecology contributions to build up a proposal as to where this money is going to be spent and how. And in my experience, that involves consultation with local members, and local members obviously take soundings from their local community. I don't think you should be alarmed about the flexibility. That is simply so that if there is money left over, or there is money that needs to be spent and there isn't anywhere in an immediate locality, it's just a cascade system to say, let's just look a little bit further. But what we couldn't do is use that money for something completely unrelated to the site for that local community. In that instance, the developer could ask for the money back. So we are always conscious that it has to be related to the development. So I think all your concerns are well founded, but I think they are dealt with in the recommendation before them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, you wanted to come back in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think given a number of members have expressed concerns regarding the ecology aspects, I think it may be beneficial for us to go and see it firsthand, so I'd like to propose a site visit.
I would caution that we are not ecology experts, and a site visit is not about going to see something and say that it looks nice, whereas we have got expert evidence as part of the report. I will put it to the committee and see if people would like to have a look, but bear that in mind. It's not about this is green, it's nice. This is about planning grounds that would require you to take note of the expert advice. Councillor Stanton.
Thank you, Chair. I very much appreciate your comments. I would second the suggestion of the site.
Okay, and I would also remind members before I take the vote that a site visit is precisely that. It is not an opportunity to be lobbied by local residents, and indeed we carry out site visits now along the same lines as the planning inspectorate do. So we don't take contributions on site from residents or indeed the applicant. Okay, we've had it moved and seconded. Can I see those in favour of a site visit? I've got 3 in favour, I think, and those against. I make that 6 against. 7, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, does that mean there was an abstention?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We won't be carrying out a site visit. Councillor Straker-Wells.
Thank you, Chair. I should be able to check this from the maps and guidelines, but it would be helpful to get an idea of what percentage of the site is used for housing, what percentage for green space. And of course, it would change enormously. And not with any additional building on that site, but I guess it's probably not when you get to the answers.
And I don't think Karen's come prepared with percentage figures either. That's the sort of question that you have to ask in advance. Oh, have you?
I think the only thing I can point you to, Councillor Straker-Wells, is 1.6 of the report, which says that the site area, so the red edge of the application site, which is shown in the diagram above 1.6, is 3.13 hectares. And then the section that's actually being built on is 1.45 hectares of that red edge. Obviously, that doesn't include the woodland sloping outside, which is shown in blue and beyond the applicant's ownership. But of the red edge, you've got 1.45 hectares of actual physical houses and roads, and then the rest of 3.15, very can't do much, is landscaped as part of the development.
Thank you. I think that does answer the question pretty well, considering that he hasn't had fire notice. It's a good point to remind members, if you've got any technical questions, you don't have to wait for committee. You can go direct to the planning officer, and that doesn't count as having expressed a view. Okay, are you ready to vote on this one? Can I see those in favour of the application? Those against? I make that 8 in favour and 3 against. Since I believe we've got 11 voting members present, there is nobody left to abstain, so that is approved. Thank you. If our speakers want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're very welcome, but we'll understand if you want to leave that. If you can just follow the directions from officers of how you leave the building. Yeah. We move on to the flag area, which will be covered today by Louise Robinson. We have 2 applications for the North Worcestershire Golf Club site, which has been previously refused by ourselves and approved by the Executive State. These are the more detailed applications. Members who voted in the past are on this application are fine to carry on. Members who weren't part of the committee are also fine to carry on the basis that you have read the reports and will take note of the discussion. But we have 2 members who have expressed views outside committee proceedings who are going to lead this item. That's Councillor Griffiths and Councillor Johnson. Again, Julie, can you check the corridor? Otherwise, they're going to have to go all around the building. And I've decided, because these 2 items are quite different in that one is residential and one relates to the public open space, to take them as separate items. We do have speakers and they will accordingly speak on both. We have Mr. Gerald Kennedy speaking in objection on both, and Nicholas Rawlings from Law Homes speaking in support. But I will first go to Louise for any update on item 7.
Thank you, Chair. One update on this item. This might suggest an additional condition, and that's requiring details of cycle storage and parking.
Thank you. Sean, can I hand over to you for item 7? I will try not to interrupt before we hear both sides this time.
Mr. Kennedy. Yes, you've got 3 minutes. I'll give you a warning 15 seconds before the end, but begin whenever you're ready.
I am speaking on behalf of the residents. The amended plans have little regard for the point of access to the site of being an existing Oxford Beach Road. Opposite the approach to Prescott Primary School and non-profit guardian court is the government of all people. We predict huge and unacceptable levels of traffic chaos, which exist already, to make it worse. The construction of lorries entered the site has not been thought through. Once again, there's been no consultation whatsoever on the West Midlands Ambulance Service who operate at the Hollingbourne Ambulance Hub. They require continuous emergency access. When tree works carried out in our Tessel Lane for pre-2020, and the said ambulances were driving through red lights against oncoming traffic. This is a patient public safety issue, being totally ignored. The ambulance service not enormously constant fees. Priority is being given to a green corridor stretching across the existing site. We object to the idea of destroying existing mature trees, which have been there for hundreds of years. Right away from planting saplings, it makes no environmental sense whatsoever. Saplings do not contribute to air quality to the same extent as mature trees. Regarding drainage, the details in the attached plan are incomprehensible. There is mention of water feature, which will be in fact a danger to young children who are capable of drowning in 2 feet of water. The associated wooden feet and railings will deteriorate. No one is going to be responsible for this safety feature. This is grossly irresponsible. It's a common feature of public open spaces that they become a magnet for antisocial behaviour. Like the golf club site has already attracted arsonists, traveller encampment. It is a frequent site of investigation for the police with their helicopters as they investigate criminal activity. This layout is a magnet for criminals. It would be detrimental to the public interest. Site security during construction hasn't been mentioned. Residents are concerned with complete lack of security. There seems to be no suggestion of any extra security being provided. Residents are going to be learning with antisocial behaviour, particularly in high crime areas. Finally, the process. We object to the complete lack of transparency and the complete utter lack of community involvement. Residents received a letter from their MP Gary Sunbrook on the 11th of January this year, planning application 2020-10215. Thank you. I should continue speaking. You will hear.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Kennedy. You will have a further opportunity to speak on the public open space on the second item, but you've had your 3 minutes and I must ask you to sit down.
All right. To 3 minutes, and I'll remind you 15 seconds before the. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, President. Not wishing to repeat the matters covered in the officer's report, which provides an excellent, well-balanced summary of the application, I would just like to emphasise a few key aspects of the proposals. Firstly, the phase 1A layout for you has been shaped directly by a number of constructive meetings, initially in person and then virtually with the council's planning, urban design and landscape, horticulture and ecology officers. Through their professional input and advice, the phase 1A layout and landscaping arrangements have been subject to a number of changes in order to ensure high quality design is achieved whilst meeting the necessary technical standards. We'll also draw your attention to the dwelling type and tenure mix of phase 1. Of the 170 units, 58 are affordable 1, 2, 3 and 4 bed dwellings for rent and shared ownership. This is in accordance with the Section 106 agreement. It means that 1 in every 3 units built on phase 1A will be for local people real need of a new home right now. Indeed, each forthcoming phase of development across the whole site will deliver 35% more houses and flats as affordable dwellings, all of which will be set within over 30 acres of publicly accessible parking and open space. Needless to say, we're particularly conscious of how best to consult with the local community on the emerging reserve matters applications in a safe, responsible and manageable way during a global pandemic. As conveyed in the statement of community involvement, we proceeded to undertake a community consultation via virtually with the emerging plans, drawings and house type images made available to view on our bespoke North District Golf Club website. Some of you may have seen this. Details of this website and the online comment form were sent to 700 neighbouring properties. The leaflet stated that should people not have access to the internet, then paper copies were planned, and feedback forms could be sent out to them by calling a dedicated phone number. Total 62 comment forms were received, with 42 responses expressing their support for the emerging phase 1A proposals. Further, the website provides a link for people to register without commitment interest in the forthcoming new homes. As of this week, we've received 309 expressions of interest. Of these, 153 are people in the same B31 postcode area as a former golf course. We would also be interested in learning 139 expressions of interest from first-time buyers. So whilst I acknowledge that 13 people objected to our phase 1 application, the reasons set out in the report, please consider this in the context of an inclusive and effective virtual community consultation that has really captured the silent majority of local people who actually support these proposals. Many of them would like to be in a regional on the site. We are committed to delivering much needed demanding new homes in the form of golf course as soon as possible. I therefore hope you will feel able to support the officer's recommendation and approve our application today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring Louise in, but if I can just remind members that what we're looking at here is a reserved matters submission for the details on phase 1A of this site, which the Secretary of State has already approved in principle. Louise, would you like to respond to those points?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you to the two speakers this morning. Just before I respond in detail in terms of the comments raised, just to carry on from the Chair in terms of the background and context of the two applications you've got in front of you today. So these are for two conserved matters applications, and they follow the outline permissions granted by the Secretary of State for the inquiry. That was back in July 2019. And that gave outline consent for dwellings to hold the site and access to that point as well. So the principle of development on the site has already been established, so we can't reopen any debate about the principles of matters. The outline consent also set out in section 1.6 in terms of the obligations, housing, education, space, and community, etc. Those are all set out in this paragraph. And again, that's in the debate separately. So in front of you today, you've got two reserved matters applications. The first one is in respect of the residential development, 70 units, phase 1. We're looking at the layout, scale, appearance, and landscaping of that application. And then the second application is laying out a significant area of new open space. Both of the applications are in accordance with the open principles that were agreed at the outline stage, and also with the development framework plan that was agreed by the Secretary of State. The application in front of you in terms of the residential reserved matters for the mix of dwellings, and that's both market dwellings, but also housing units in terms of their mix, and also compliant with the density set out at the outline stage. So that just gives you a bit of a broad background in terms of the context of the applications in front of you. Just turning to some of the more specific issues that were raised by the speaker. In terms of vehicle access, as I said, that was agreed at the outline stage. That isn't for approval or reconsideration today. The access from this particular reserved matters in the Franklin Beaches has been approved. And in respect to the ambulance service, they were consulted at the outline stage, and nothing has changed in respect of that access. That was already debated and considered during the outline application. In terms of construction management and how that's going to be managed, there's a very detailed condition that's enclosed on the outline application, so that covers all of those issues in respect to how the site will be constructed and any impacts on or off the site. So that's already been covered. We don't need to repeat that in respect to this application. In terms of trees, yes, there will be some removal of trees within the site. That again is considered in detail at the appeal inquiry in terms of the impact that will have. But there will actually be 84 new trees planted this phase, and there will be a net increase in canopy coverage. That's detailed within the report. The tree officers will look carefully at the application. In terms of the open space, obviously that is the next item we'll be considering. Some comments raised about that. We do think that that has been laid down in a well-considered way in terms of its layout, quality, the type of environment that is going to create. And we look carefully at the relationship with the open space and the houses to ensure that there's some visibility and overseeing those in respect. There's a comment made about drainage. Again, that was covered in the outline. It's a detailed condition to be discharged. Drainage, but it should be noted that there's no objection to the Environment Agency or our own flood authority with respect to this application. And just finally, a comment was made about public consultation. just for members' benefit on this particular item, 133 letters, notifications sent out on the original and the amended plans that we had, signed press notices, and that's all in accordance with your publishing, community involvement and our statutory requirements. In addition to that, you heard today from Law Homes, they themselves sent out a large number of letters, 700 letters from residents and councillors, directing them to their specific website, get details, and put their comments on the proposal. Those people who didn't have internet access, there was a phone number, form, they wanted to paper copies of the plans. So we believe that we've carried out our own statutory requirement in terms of consultation and the applicant themselves on that further step. I think that covered all the specific issues that were raised. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring in members if anyone wishes to come in. Councillor Straker Wells.
Thank you, Chair. We understand that our hands are tied, and our options are restricted in the way the inspector's judgments. I also know the current application applies to part of the space. Now, looking at 114, site area is 5.95 hectares, residential development area is 4.17 hectares. So that's, my maths is correct, about 2/3. Well, okay. Maths is not my strong thing. But what I would like to know about is whether we know if there are any further developments, future developments in phases and what time to go through. Thank you.
Does anyone else? Councillor Stanford.
Just briefly, I appreciate where, as Councillor said, and under some type, I want to raise number 4.7 in the report, which raises some suggestions from the police relating to antisocial behaviour and off-road bikes, which I know are very prevalent in the city. I'm just wondering if Brooks can recommend the police's suggestion that this engage be used on footpath access into the development.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come in? No, Louise, can you respond to those points?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So just in respect of the phases, yes, there will be the outline consent again, the commission for up to 800, since it's only 171. So yes, we will be anticipating further phases of residential development. And just checking that I think the outline consent has got another year to run. So you would expect those applications to be in the next 12 months in these matters. So yes, there will be further phases. Just in respect of the suggestion from the police, I don't see that there would be any objection for us including that as a condition specifically. What I would say in terms of the open space is that within section 106, the local authority would be supervising the laying out again of the space, it would be agreeing with specification with the homes and also future access. So if members were amenable, if I check the details of section 106, if it's already covered with respect to the specification, that's fine, but if it isn't, suggest a specific condition, members are minded to approve the application. I don't have the details of section 106 with me, it may well be that that's already covered in terms of the details.
Are you happy to delegate that point to Louise? Yeah? Are you ready to vote on this one? Okay, so we're voting on item 7, which is the application for dwellings on part of the site. Can I see those in favour? That's 9 in favour, which I believe is unanimous. I'm finding it easier to count in here than I did in the council chamber. Do you agree, Tandit? So that is approved. We have to leave Councillors Griffiths and Johnson outside and take the second application for the same site, this time for the public open space. Again, it's reserved matters because the outline has already been approved following inquiry. Our speakers will be speaking again on this, but I'll just ask Louise for any updates.
No updates.
Okay. Sure, I'll hand over to you for the speakers then.
Mr. Kennedy, you have a further 3 minutes if you would like it to on what you want to say about this current application. If you don't want to speak, that's absolutely fine.
Speak again.
Sorry, before you start, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I will give you a warning 15 seconds before the end, and that is to enable you to wrap up within the 3 minutes. So start when you like.
If I can come back on the subject of the open space, yeah. I think I mentioned the ready-made accident risk, which is the full part I don't, is there a comment on that? There is, I didn't hear it. Nobody has answered my query about that. If I can talk about community involvement, yeah, this is a matter of some considerable democratic significance. In October, I think it was, 2019, we had a Birmingham City Council board meeting, which says representatives of Law Homes, Harris Land Planning Consultants promised a public meeting that was prior to the pandemic. My view is that this committee today should delay matters until we as residents have had a chance to discuss these matters between ourselves. The reality is, Michael, third, is that many residents are not on the internet, they don't understand the internet, they also don't understand plans. Sure, they don't understand what is being proposed. We have been deprived of our ward councillor, Councillor Armstrong, suffering with coronavirus since Christmas 2020. He will already speak on our part and organise these meetings. I have also asked Councillor Simon Barr to liaise. He refuses to respond to my letters and emails. We have therefore effectively been disenfranchised. There is no community involvement. People do not know what is being done in their name. You can issue on the immediate basic standards of democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rawlings, you have another 3 minutes if you would like them. And again, I will remind you 15 seconds before the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning again, Jess. The application before you today, this particular application, is for 9.9 hectares or 24.5 acres of new public parkland through the central Orland golf course. The application details are well summarised within your officer's report. As I mentioned in my presentation for phase 1A reserve matters application, we've worked very closely with your officers in order to provide the layout, landscaping arrangements, and play area details for you today. These details have also been shared by the virtual community consultation based around our dedicated website. I outlined this key aspect of our pre-application activity in my previous presentation, so I won't repeat it again here. Suffice to say, it was structured so as to consult with the local community on the central parkland at the same time we consult on phase 1A details. This joined up approach to consultation was considered very important by your officers, and of course we agreed in order to enable people to see the bigger picture in the relationship between our phase 1A homes, the neighbouring central parkland and the wider site, and also then the forthcoming future phases. Needless to say, we all view this element of the site development as being particularly exciting. We will create over 25 acres of public parkland with accessible tools. The parkland will offer different recreation opportunities and experiences across 3 distinct zones, merge harmoniously. With equipped areas for play and ball games in the green corridor, to the informal and educational wildflower meadows of the ecology park, which will lead to primary school, through to more ecology sensitive and tranquil woodland areas. A network of surfaced and known paths will meander through the site, linking the various development phases as well as the surrounding residential streets. This will ensure the parkland is easily accessible to both existing and the new residents, on foot or cycle, and must be seen in the context of a fenced site that currently has no public access at all. I know that there were 11 responses received to this application, of which 9 are objections, a number of which is still concerning principle development is now established. Trust will regard these objections in the context of the 62 comment forms which were received during our pre-application consultation. Some 44 respondents expressed their approval of the design. A number of people commented on it being much needed, accessible to the local area, and beneficial to the local community. Finally, I will draw your attention to the tree canopy coverage plan, prepared by the law and summarised in your report. Notwithstanding this is a live document, you'll see that there will be a net canopy cover gain over 27,000 square metres resulting from the tree retention, removal, new planting across the central park of the phase 1A. This park will be a tremendous managed asset. We feel able to support the officer's recommendation today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring Louise back in. Louise, I'm going to ask you to repeat, as we're taking this as a separate item, the remarks you've already made about consultation, but I will remind members that the ward forum process is not a part of our agreed consultation system, and that officers and applicants have worked hard to continue to operate through the pandemic. Louise, do you want to respond to the points made, including the consultation?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you again to the speakers. So just picking up on that specific point and with respect to this application. So 402 letters of neighbour notification sent out on the original and the amended plans. Again, citing press notices. That's all in accordance with the statutory requirements and some statement of regional involvement. And also in respect to what your homes did with their website, the opportunity for people to view those plans and the opportunity of that letter if they weren't able to access the internet, to have a phone line to get pick copies of those plans. And so we are confident that we covered the statutory requirement and further involvement from the applicant themselves. So the only other additional point that was raised, just picking up on Mr. Kennedy's point about access routes into and through the site. They are all set out in the development framework plan, also the outline stage, the previous application and this application for the open space follow those principles in terms of the layout, where the access is. There are large suite of conditions in the outline consent, including both on-site highway improvements, also off-site ones, in addition through section 278. Those details follow. The phases of residential development again build on that framework, follow those principles. There are no objections from the transportation officers to the open space application and the previous applications. We are comfortable with what is being presented to you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on this one? Councillor Scott?
I only have one brief question, which is what protections put in place for this piece of land in future use will be maintained as landscape and not be put forward in future demolition and use.
And Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know, I haven't followed closely what public consultations have gone on with this particular site over many years. But I do think it's time for people to stop saying that I don't do the internet. The internet's been around now for 25 years. Well, it's a lot longer than that, but it's been easily available to people for 25 years. I've got constituents in Sheldon in their 80s, and they have embraced the internet, and they enjoy the benefits that they get from it. And these aren't academics and intellectuals, these are regular folk who have embraced the changes over the last 25 years. And I just do not think it's acceptable these days for people to say that I don't do the internet.
Councillor Stanford.
Thank you, Chair. Similar to the last application, I want to highlight the Lisa's comments around access to the landscape space relating to kissing gates and metal kissing gates to access from massive behaviour and dirt bikes. And secondly, I can't see on the plans any specific provision of seating and benches adjacent to the Muga, and I'll also have to highlight that concern for the question.
Thank you. Louise?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just in respect of the public open space and access to that in the future, as part of the section 106, it said that the local authority will be supervising the laying out of that in the agreed specifications. So that set out how it is from day one. But section 106 also goes further in terms of requiring public access, and that's actually built into the legal agreement. It also gives us an opportunity as a local authority to step in the management company. We understand it's going to be maintained by management company set up. If they're not maintaining that to understand the expect and set up in 106, then that gives us the opportunity to step in. So that sets out in terms of what it's going to be like with access. If you were to get an application in the future to build on that land, we treat that in the same way that we treat all applications. Obviously, there will be a strong material consideration, original outline, and what's allowed to appeal, and setting out the quantum of the space, which is clearly critical in terms of the inspector and the Secretary of State's decision in terms of that balance between residential and on-site open space. Just picking up the point that you raised on the previous application, there is actually condition 4 on this application relating to kissing gates, so that actually is covered on this application, the open space. In terms of benches, again, that will come out through the detail within section 106, so that will be covered already, other than the section 106 in terms of specification. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scott, are you indicating you want to come back in?
Yeah, just one final question regarding accessibility for those with disabilities who would hugely benefit from having access to sites, this sites of nature. And I see no indications in the report that there is going to be specific in for these residents.
I'm not seeing anyone else, so if you can pick that up, Louise.
Yes, in terms of that, we've obviously consulted with our internal landscape officers to detail those sorts of layout in terms of accessibility, looking at levels and specification. That's certainly something that it hasn't specifically been taken up. I will take it back to the case certainly to go through those discussions on the agreement specification and the applicant to ensure that that's taken account of.
Thank you. I'm not.
So just thank you, Chair. Just a question. I was just wondering. You know the pools of water. Sorry, this is already covered in it. So the pools of water, in particular, the ones that are closest to the residential sort of dwellings. What sort of health and safety measures are they around them? We actually see
Would that be subject to the same sort of management plan, and therefore the same sort of standards as our own parks?
Yes, yes, it would be.
But could you make a note just to double check
Yes.
that that is covered to our standards rather than?
Yeah, also part of those would be specifications into our practice. Big activities.
Okay, I think we're done with questions and comments. If you're ready to vote. Sorry, did you want to come in, Sean? Or just poised, ready to
I'm
cast?
just taking my glasses off. I can see you.
Sort of movement in the corner of my eye. Okay then, those in favour of this application? That's 9, I believe, which is unanimous, and this is approved. Thank you very much. Can you let our colleagues back in, please, Julie? And thanks to our speakers. You're welcome to stay if you want to, but we'll understand if you don't want to sit through the rest of the agenda. And you'll be guided out to the complexities of this building. Wait for Councillors Griffiths and Johnson to take their seats. We don't have any further speakers today. And that was the end of the south area. So we're moving next to the east, and Tony is going to look after this area today, and item 9 is 136 to 138 Kingsbury Road, Erdington. You will recall you've seen this before, and you deferred it, minded to refuse. Members will recall, but I'll say this for everybody else, that deferred minded to refuse gives officers the duty to look at potential reasons for refusal and evaluate them and come back to us with a further report, which is happening here. So Tony, if you'd like to provide any updates and just take us through the report.
Thanks, Chair. There are no updates. I'd like to remind members that this application was previously discussed by your committee, and the only outstanding issue was two large semi-detached properties being under TP 35. I'd like to point out that this is a unique situation, and through this application would not set a precedent. It is proposed to refurbish a pair of adjoining vacant run-down semis located on the corner site to provide 8 1- and 2-bed flats, and at a satisfactory level of amenity space and car parking would be provided. In terms of housing need, we rely on the strategic housing market assessment. This sets out the need within Birmingham for larger dwellings that indicates a particular need for dwellings. It's 4 or more bedrooms. However, the document is somewhat outdated. It was published in 2013 and therefore has limited weight in plain terms. Only yesterday, for example, I was informed that an appeal was allowed for a change of use from a large dwelling to a 7-bed HMO at 85 Holbank Road. We argued, amongst other reasons, the loss of a large family dwelling, but the inspector concluded that the strategic housing market assessment can only be given limited weight in the decision due to its age, and as such, the appeal was allowed. I am concerned that should members be minded to refuse this application on TP 35, it is likely that the appeal will be allowed and we could be liable for costs. Therefore, I remind members that the application is recommended for approval And at the last committee, it was suggested that an informative be added to the decision requiring the applicant to enter into a section 278 agreement to secure off-site highway works with the term parking on nearby courthouse. Given my concerns, I request that the application is approved with conditions outlined in the original report, together with an informative requirement in 278 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate Tony's comments, but we have a situation here where this is two large properties, and contrary to what people say, there is a significant demand for such large properties. I get it all the time in terms of my inbox, and other councillors have commented on that before. So there is clear demand for large properties. Members were concerned about the evidence that was submitted to suggest that these were surplus to requirements, and if the evidence is as robust as it is, why has that not been shared with us or included in the report? Because it was so conclusive as the report suggested it, why has it not been included, given that that was one of the primary concerns raised? It talks about, it's only been vacant since August 2020, so that's not a particularly long period of time considering we've been going through a global pandemic. Council tax has been flagged as an issue. I suspect that's more reflective of the administration being done every year by 45%, rather than necessarily a lack of large demand for large properties. And it also talks about how refurbishing will improve the look. Well, anyone who's been to Gravelly Hill will know that often properties which are HMOs or self-contained flats are not usually an improvement on the street scene. In fact, very much the opposite. So I don't believe that is going to be the case. And sadly, it will just contribute to another deterioration of Gravelly Hill Walk, which is a great shame because there's lots of lovely large properties in that walk which have all gone this way. And I feel that we should resist that. So I'm not satisfied that this application is compliant with the development plan, and therefore we should still resist it.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to come in? Councillor Straker Wells.
Thank you, Chair. I hear what Mr. Moore is saying. I suppose the real question in
if you could speak up a little more.
The real question in my mind is around the reference to in this location. In other words, there's a suggestion that there is not the requirement for family homes to depend at this spot in contrast to the self-contained flats. Have I got that right? And if so, could someone tell me a bit more about the evidence?
Councillor Isley?
Yeah, I'm quite against the HMOs, but self-contained, that these flats, they are I'm in favor of that. But this building has got long history of planning. I think there are some difficulty with them, and I support this. That's it.
Thank you. Cam?
My personal opinion is I know the area quite well, having grown up in Erdington, still around there, and I think this would be a significant improvement to the look of the area and would go a long way to enhancing local demand for properties in that particular section, and that really obviously seeing reasons not be there.
Thank you. Tony, do you want to respond to those points?
Yes, thank you for those comments, councillors. I think, as being mentioned, this is a unique situation. Approving this application would not set any kind of precedent. They are two large semi-detached properties, currently vacant, very run down on a corner site. It's proposed to be refurbished on, which will massively benefit the local area in terms of their appearance. They will have satisfactory amenity space, 30 square metres for the resident. They will have ample car parking. In terms of the information that was provided by the applicant, he went to local estate agents, has been trying to let the properties for over a year for private rental. He's had very little interest when proposed tenants have looked at the level of community tax, when they looked at maintenance costs and so forth. The local estate agents have said that there is little demand. He knows that there is a demand for 1 and 2 bedroom flats, if you're prepared to spend quite a significant sum to refurbish them. And I think that the provision of 6 one-bed and 2-bed flats would be a great asset to the local area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sean, you wanted to?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think what we've got to think about here is that we have a policy that sets the scene and looks to try and protect family housing. And you've heard from Tony that that policy is somewhat dated and is based on evidence that's now approaching 10 years old. And the inspector has only recently allowed an appeal where he's commented on that. So we struggle with the weight with that policy. And what that policy is saying is protect it unless there's good evidence to do otherwise. And what we have here is some evidence from the applicant, and you'll make your own mind up how weighty that evidence, how weighty you think that evidence is. But the applicant has made a commercial decision based on a trawl of some local estate agents and is saying that in the applicant's view, there isn't that demand. And we don't have any current evidence to say that's wrong. So if we had current evidence that would conflict with it, then we would be in a better shape. So here we have a somewhat out-of-date policy, no up-to-date evidence to contradict what's been supplied. And our advice to you is, in the circumstances, we don't think we can successfully defend a refusal. And you have heard from Tony as well that due to the location and nature of the two properties, we don't think this decision, if you agree with it, would undermine our case for any future decisions going forward. And they would all be considered on their own merits. Thank you.
Thank you. So you've heard that members that officers have looked at your previous decision and been unable to bring forward what they believe is a defensible reason for refusal. That means that we are going to vote now on the application. So you are voting on the application, whether you're in favour or against. If the majority are in favour, it will be approved. If the majority are against, then we will need to look again at reasons for refusal. So can I see those voting in favour of the application? That 9 in favour, those against? That's 2 against. That is therefore approved. Thank you. Okay, that was it for the East area. So we're heading into the city centre now, and we've got Miriam covering this for us. This is where Councillor Gareth Moore has declared an interest and is now leaving for this item. Item 10 is land bounded by Sherlock Street, Bishop Street and Hurst Street in the city centre. Miriam, do we have any updates on this one?
Thank you, Chair. We do have a couple of updates on this one. Councillor Moore made a recommendation on the 22nd of June and welcomed the engagement with the developer and efforts made during the determination process. He's confident that the impact on Game Village and the neighbouring economy has been considered both prior and during the application process. It is disappointing that the in-park is closed, but welcomes that the possibility of the premises reopening and alternative neighbouring venue has been considered. Development is still likely to cause harm to the Game Village and the LGBTQ community. As such, request that members consider Section 106 monies being directed to public health and safety improvements within the community, as opposed to for housing, which is likely to have little to no benefit for a community on the siege of increasing residential development and noise complaints that it leads to. Directing Section 106 money to public health or safety improvements would have a direct benefit to the Gay Village and LGBT community. Also, future residents, as it would make the area safer and more pleasant area to live. There's kind of further representation from the applicant highlighting key benefits of the scheme. The proposal to have a high quality, well designed, amenity rich residential apartments with a varied mix of sizes, including accessible apartments and provision of 47 homes situated in a quiet and sustainable location within the Birmingham City Centre. Development delivered new and improved public ground in and around the site, contributing towards the council's aspiration for a network of well-connected public spaces across the city. In addition, a financial contribution of £30,000 will be made to be spent locally on public ground improvements in the benefit of the local community. Development will create approximately 240 temporary jobs during construction, with the potential to create 85 jobs during the operation of the development. The proposed commercial unit will aim to achieve free and very good standards, and development will use a combination of global zero carbon technology to achieve a 19.8% carbon reduction. There are no outstanding technical objections and no significant harm or adverse impacts that have been identified. The applicant is pleased the office report to committee concludes the proposed development accords with the development policies and development plan and is heavily supported by national planning policy. This is further supported by the requirements of statutory principles who have considered due consideration to their statutory duties and very relevant planning policies, raise no objections to the proposed development. In that context, the report recommends that planning permission should be granted subject to conditions of Section 106 agreement.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to come in on this one? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I agree that a large proportion of the Section 106 money should be allocated to the safety of the area, given that the police make the point at 4.7 of the report, making the following recommendations, particularly about the installation of the CCTV scheme and submission of lighting, and that's mentioned further down as one of the conditions. So I would agree that a significant proportion of 106 is for the safety of the scheme and development. It's a huge number of apartments, but I'd actually do quite like the design of it personally, and I would be supporting it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Straker-Wells.
Thank you, Susan. I like this development, and I like the way in which it allows for community space in the centre. And I'm getting used to the colour scheme. It surrounds this terracotta-opolis, as it's called. The greens and the browns are stop jarring. So all in all, I feel quite positive about it. But the one question, if I can bring this all back down to earth again, is about waste management, the collection of waste. Is it too detailed a request at this stage to ask how that will be done, or is that something later? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anyone else. Mary, can you pick up the point that Councillor Johnson has made and let us know which aspects of safety will be picked up under condition and which under Section 106?
Chair, I think all of the items in 4.7 would not be Section 106 contribution. They would be as part of the development itself that will be funded through directly by the applicant related to the building rather than community issues related to 106. So I think the response is we don't need to use the 106 for those issues. They can be covered by condition. In terms of the 106 generally, as you can see through the report, we're suggesting that there are the site-specific issues of safety that are covered, and the 106 money should be targeted at affordable housing as being a priority issue for us. I'll hand over to Marion.
Thank you.
Thank you. In regards to the rankings collection, it's a management issue as well, and as part of the submission, the rankings strategy was submitted, so that we can identify.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment before we move to the vote? No, in that case, can I see those in favour? I'll make that 10, which is unanimous for those voting on this item, so that is approved. Thank you. Let Councillor Moore back in there. And we're staying with the city centre for the rest of the agenda. Item 11 is Cornwall House, at the corner of Rydal Street and I think Ludgate Hill. Do we have any updates?
Thank you, Chair. I've got one update. It's just to remove condition 46, as drainage matters are already considered in condition 15 and 26.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on this one? I'm not seeing anyone, so having studied the report and heard the updates, are you ready to vote? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment on the disappointment in reducing the car parking for this investing in 14 spaces instead of 7.
Okay, anyone else? Marion, do you want to respond on that point?
Yeah, it's a city centre location, excellent access to transport networks, so far away from various train stations, it will be a stable location.
Thank you. Okay then, if you're ready to vote, Councillor Scott.
I'd just like some clarification on the steps to away from public transport, because actually there's a dual road between this, I think that is, and same near train station, so to you to explain that a bit further.
It's about a 10-minute walk from the site itself, perhaps getting to the train bus stops along Cornwall Road. We've got New Street Station, we've got Snowfield Station as well, Andrew Station. So it's still, and it's within, it's only in walking distance from the city core, from our perspective, and in terms of sustainable drive that we have as a nation, I think,
I think you can access Snow Hill and the trams without crossing the dual carriageway. But I would have to check that to be 100% sure, but I'm fairly sure that at that corner you can. Your disbelieving face is quite something, Councillor Scott. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I think the connectivity with Snowhill Station is irrelevant because it's great if you want to catch the train in a particular direction that Snowhill goes. If you want to go anywhere else, it's not limited.
Okay. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask what portion, what portion of the roof being used for the new space, and if there the possibility to extend that because of a relative lack of green parks within where those will be.
I think within the officer's report, there is a planting that's been provided in regards to rooftop. I think it's around 200 square metres of the roof, just over. And at this stage, I think it's what.
Okay, are you ready to vote on this one? Can I see those in favour? That's 11, which again is unanimous, and that is approved. Heading across town now to Bradford Street. Item 12 is 116 Bradford Street. Any updates?
No.
Okay, any comments? Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It may be in the report, but I can't seem to find it anywhere, even in the access and parking statements as to what parking provision, if there is. I assume it's one of these car-free zones, but it doesn't actually specify that there are no spaces either, like it's car-free. The word parking, as far as I can see, doesn't feature in the access and parking statement, except to say access and parking, which is pretty redundant really, because you should at least state it's car-free, rather than it's compliant with policy TP 27.
Paragraph 1.4 clarifies there are no car parking spaces for those residents. There's one-to-one on site cycles.
It doesn't state in the parking section either.
But it is there in the report at one. Okay, any other questions or comments? Are you ready to vote on this one? Can I see those in favour? Keep your hands up for a minute. I'll make that 9 in favour. Any against? And 2 against. That is approved. And our last one of the day is the lifts of the rag markets on Upper Dean Street. Some of you will recognise this. You've seen it before, but this is with a slight change in location. Do we have any updates?
No, it's
Okay. Any comments? Any questions? Councillor Return.
Really, I think that was very compulsory work and there was marketing there, so some people like on that. I think that's too for the plate.
Thank you. No one else? I don't think there's anything to respond to there. So if you're ready to vote, can I see those in favour? That's 11 in favour, which again is unanimous, and that is approved. Thank you very much. Which brings us to other urgent business. I'm looking in all the usual directions and not seeing anyone. Thank you for that. Which just leaves us to Louise. Oh yes, I'm sorry. I knew somebody had said they wanted to raise something. I've forgotten it was you. Sorry. Yes. Louise, you wanted to give us an update.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a quick update to members about the trial site. So this was the large-scale student accommodation scheme used by committee earlier in the year. As we expected, the applicants have appealed against that refusal. One reason using scale and density from the pool. So they appealed, and the appeal is now valid. And we have a public inquiry date set now for the 12th of October this year, so it's been back to the start. I understand that letters have gone out to make representations on the application, just setting out what the process is and procedure, and the involved in the inquiry process. We want to make any representations of actually to appear on the inquiry. If members wanting more information about how they might want to get involved, then drop me a line, we can discuss that further. And speak to our barrister, and we will obviously be submitting our own evidence and providing evidence in respect of using the refusal, independent design consultant, and providing that for us. But clearly there may be members of the committee who want to make their own representations, and we can discuss the process for all that. It was just an update to let people know that that deal is now valid, it's running.
Thank you. Sean?
Yeah, it's inevitable that as part of the inquiry, there's going to be questions about the weight that members gave to the issues and how they came to the decision. And it may well be helpful in defending the case if at least one of the committee is willing to appear as a witness at the inquiry. To say what was in committee's mind when the decision was made. So if either discuss it amongst yourselves, or if there's one or more of you that would like to put your head into the lion's den, then all victims are welcome. So just let us know if you feel strongly about the decision and would like to appeal to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sure members will consider that, but if you and the legal team review the video of that discussion, it may be that you want to approach a member or two
Yes.
and invite them to make representations to the inquiry. I think that would be entirely a reasonable course of action.
Thank you.
Nothing else on that then? Thank you all very much. It just remains for us to deal with item 15, which is the authority to the chair and officers in an urgent situation between meetings to act on behalf of the committee. Thank you all. We will review the webcast for today and see whether we can get some improvements for future meetings. Do look carefully on the agenda for next time to see where we will be and how we will work around that. Thank you all very much.
The feedback is that,
They're not introducing.
asked